All right, well, welcome back to this series. It's been about 4 months since I made a video, and that's just the consequence of work getting out of control. But anyway, nevertheless, better late than never. The only update I think I made between now and then was kind of deploying some of this data to more of a relational database system instead of CSV files because I typically don't like to junk up my environment space with a bunch of CSV files, and it's just a little easier to manage and pull back in the data. So in here, like the Fred data, the S&P data, it was all put into a Microsoft SQL Server database. And the reason I went with Microsoft SQL Server is a friend of mine who also is working on this kind of stuff, his job environment is within the Windows ecosystem, so he's very familiar with Microsoft-based products, and so I thought it'd be a little bit easier for him to work in this space as well. And if you wanted to actually go ahead and download some of or follow along with that kind of methodology, you could just go and search Google Microsoft SQL Server download and either go with Developer or Express. I believe I went with Express in this scenario. And then download, run through the wizard, and at the end it'll prompt you to download Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So you can just click this, and then you'll get this nice little IDE, which you see down here. And this is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to make a video on like kind of SQL analysis, but we will be using it going forward. So if you wanted to look it up, there's probably a plethora of YouTube videos on it. So in this, I'm just connected to the local engine, which is my PC. I just made a database called Finance, and as you can see, we have our combined data in here. So the unemployment rate, the Fed's fund rate, and then I believe we have open, high, low, close, so the S&P. And this, from what I recall, we had it curated to like a monthly. And then each one of these should be its individual loaded in with all the null values. So there's the quarterly ones in here, and then what was daily is daily, and then S&P, same thing. So that's kind of where we're going to start today. There's one thing I wanted to say in here. When you look at this, it doesn't account for weekends, so the gaps in the data, we're going to do some forward fill, I'm sure, going forward. And then the other thing, because I took a time off, my little hiatus, I had some thoughts. I wanted to change a few things, and then some other friends were talking about technical analysis. And if you recall, I'll go back actually to here. We did this random walk experiment a while back. I'll just run it again so you can, get a refresh. This looks very much like a stock chart, and we already did some testing to say the S&P is also a random walk. We did some Dicker-Foley tests, and we had our p-values, statistics, critical values, etc. So knowing that, I haven't been one of those people that's very sold on technical analysis, because a lot of these technical indicators are based off statistical values of a random walk data set, which doesn't completely make sense to me. So I'm planning on making my own little versions of these that are a little more, I'll say, impactful, and then build them into kind of a strategy and see if we can forecast from there. In addition, I'm very sold on EPS forecast. In fact, a level of importance, in my opinion, I think economic data, EPS forecast, and then I'm going to put exploratory AI, because I think I'm going to run some LLM. Llama 3 will probably be what I use here for sentiment, and bringing in a lot more data and analysis into this whole system as a whole. We'll be looking at sentiment. Fed announcements are huge for the S&P, so we'll just see what we can find in this space. But there's an entire system. If you haven't heard of Zacks Earnings, they basically built an entire business model on EPS forecasts and analyst rating or revisions, so upgrades and downgrades. So I'm not sure if some of these are available, and if they are, they're probably behind some paywall, so that'll be something we're going to look into. But for today, let's just go ahead and build out some technical analysis. And on that note, in technical analysis, depending on your trading strategy, I think I'm going to start with the 1 year, 1 day, since we're pulling in daily values. And then we're going to probably have to build in a subset of that to break down a shorter time frame to find when it's the best time during the day to buy. So that's going to be another step we're going to put in there. So yeah, back in here, let's, I guess, go ahead and kick this off. And I will be connecting to this Microsoft SQL Server system to kind of curate this data a little bit easier. So If you're not familiar with that, well, we're going to walk through it kind of slow here. And actually, I'll be able to copy some of the code that I've already made. So I'm just going to call this one the technical analysis. .py. And then let's go ahead and grab, here's our raw data. And we can probably copy this whole line in. Okay, and I guess I don't really need that anymore. Keep this open. I'm just gonna save this constantly. So here, it's a pretty straightforward connection string. Server, read the server, and you can find server within your properties here. It's right here. And if you come down to properties, it's just gonna be right here on the top. Copy this in. And then the database in itself, you can just right click to create the database. So new database, I'll just create one for this example, test. And then now we're gonna refresh this. Our test is already created. I'm spacing out, so down here. And then create tables using just SQL, but we're gonna do it from Python, so I don't really need this. I'm gonna delete that out. Let's toggle back over. And so right now we're in database finance, and the ODBC driver 17 for SQL Server. And then the connection string, you can see this if you just Google Python, Microsoft SQL Server, anything on Stack Overflow is gonna have this connection string available. Trusted connection, yes. Driver of driver, so on and so forth. So create engine, I'll try to put little comments in here just to help make this a little easier. So now we're gonna read in the data. And data, let's do this. We're going to go data equals pd.read, and we should have a prompt for SQL query. So we're going to do select, and then we're going to break. That way we can bring in all of these and join them in on the data themselves. So select, and then backslash for break. And then we're going to hit enter, and that's bothering me, so let's bring that out. And from here, I think we're going to grab the Fred data. Let me see what we have. So let's combine. So this one's Fred, unemployment. So on these ones, the ones that I do want, I want all of these for sure. And then I only want the ones that are on daily values for the technical analysis at least. I'm not going to use the monthly ones, and then we're going to forward fill these gaps. So it looks like the 10-year 3-month, 10-year 2-year. We'll do the recession and the Fed's fund rate, and that should be good for this. So actually, one of the first things I want to do is write the from statement so I can alias this a little bit easier. Put these down here. And let's say from, because now we have to say DBO. So DBO as database object. So DBO, and then leave that in brackets, dot, and brackets, we'll do Fred data, underscore data. And I'm going to alias that as A. It's just easier for me. Backslash, and let me bring this in. And then I want to do a full join. And then this one, I'm going to just, I guess I could call out finance just for an example. So from the database, dot, and then we'll say again, the database object, dot, brackets, and sorry, I already forgot what the name of it was. S&P data. And we'll call that B. And then break here. And what we're going to join them on is the date field, since that's what's common between them. And we'll do a date equals b.date. And that should be good. Okay, now let's start bringing in what we want from this. So let's do b.date. And this is the worst using these brackets in here, but we're going to use them for now. And then we'll break again. B dot, or the, actually we'll go, let's grab A dot tenure. Oh, this is going to be a headache. I'm going to copy these in from the SQL and I'll be right back and then we'll go from there. Okay, so a little bit of cheating here, but I just took some time and wrote these out. So now we have this, we have our query written in, so we're going to go ahead and print the data and just make sure everything came in, take a look at it. And then in addition, it's, I don't know, I mean this is probably bad practice, but let's do to CSV, and I'm going to name this file something like trash, just so we can take an additional look, see if there's anything we want to do with it. Regarding, like, I know we're going to have to forward fill because of the dates, but if there's anything else that we want to take a look at. Okay, so everything's printed in. Let me open the CSV file, and then we'll be able to further look at this. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. Our index, and then we're going to probably want to do 5.6, 5.7, and then we'll interpolate these to fill in because we do have the Fed's fund rate constantly flowing down. That runs every day. This shouldn't have any null values, and we'll do that for all of these fields. So that one's going to be another headache to copy all these in, but that'll be fine. So I guess now we can delete these, and let me kill that off because I don't need that anymore, and we'll kill this. Okay, so now let's move on, move everything over. Just for the date field, let's make sure everything is in the correct format. So we'll do date PD. And let's format this to month, day, year, and that should be good for us. Can't remember if it's capital. I think it is, so I'm gonna go with that. Let's do errors equal. Okay, perfect. Okay, so the forward filling, let's think about the best way to do this. We need a forward fill off the date, off the previous day, and I think we could just do a loop on this. So let me. Yeah, this one might take a couple tries. So we're just going to write, we're going to forward fill the dates. And so I'm just going to do something for I in range. Let's do length. Data. And then if is, we should have is null. Dot lock. Hold on brackets. Let's do I. Do date. Equals data dot lock, and then -1 date plus PD. We should use time delta day equals 1, I think would fit here. Okay, let's see if that's going to take. So let's now say data. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm on a new keyboard and it is the worst getting used to this. Let's try date. Okay, so we should be good here. Now let's do our interpolate for these, and I'm going to pause this because I have to copy all those ones in, the ones that we were looking at in that CSV file. So I'll be right back, copy those in, and then we'll drop, and then we'll start creating our technical indicators if everything looks good. All right, we've got all those copied in, and if you recall at some point, it was one of the earlier videos, we use the same method, so it's kind of like the cheat code, just went and grabbed it and dragged it in. So we're able to rinse and repeat that process here. So we have all the adjusted, close, open, high, low, close, volume, and then our other two that we're going to use for kind of the daily checks, and then we're going to drop anything that's null values after that. So this one should be good. And now this becomes the nightmarish part of creating the technical indicators. So I think what we're going to look at, and I pulled this up because this is where I struggle, so I know I'm going to get trolled quite a bit for this at some point in the future, but this is my pain point, so to speak. Let's just look at a 1 year, and I'm looking at the S&P. This is really hard. So like the RSI, by logic, basically, if it exceeds 70, it's overbought. If it goes below 30, it's oversold. So if we use that logic, I struggle with this concept because here it's above 70. I mean, it's at 80 right here. So we reach this little overbought area, but it's for what, maybe a week or so, and then it just keeps going up. So at what point do you say it's overbought and then it's going to go down? And so I know this is not to be used as like a singular tool, but combined with other methods. So essentially that's what we'll do, and try to walk through some of the logic here to see what makes sense. So MACD is really popular. We have our signal line. I think this is on the 12.26.9. So our 9-day signal crosses above, and that's our buy indicator. So by logic, we could say if this was at 30, so we got, and it looks like right here we were around 29. So if this hits 30, once then this crosses, we have a buy signal, and then I guess we could say if it hits 70, that's a sell signal, or when the signal crosses back under, and that would have been pretty nice depending on your trading strategy, if you're just buying long, or if you're trading contracts, option contracts, that time decay will eat you alive. So you really have to nail this time frame down. So that's one, but then here's where I'm gonna get trashed, but it's okay because this is where I struggle. What do you do in this? This is just noise. So we've got to have something built in to account for noise, or kind of this neutral ground where we don't really have a buy or sell play to do here. And the downside is that's noise for months. So you might not be trading for a long time if you're relying on these two. And so I'm sure that's where we get into others. So we can do a moving average. 50 might be, 50 is probably good if you're trading for a longer term. So let's put in another one and adjust this to, I think, what's the death cross? 50 and 200. Well, that's great. This has been bullish forever, so that one's not for me. So let's swap this to like maybe a 5, and then bring in another one and change this one to maybe a 20. And then we have another criteria. So oversold, buy signal, and then when it crosses over, we have a buy signal. And that still works. The crossover could be a sell signal here, or when it crosses below here, so that works. And then here, this is good because you can kind of say if the 5 is above the 20, we're in a long position, and that helps to remove some of the noise. So if this flags for a short position, or the RSI flags for a short position, but we remain 5 above 20 for the EMA, then we don't make a move. We just see it's going up. And one of the others that I thought was going to be really useful is called the OBV. I'm really sold on volume, because if you're going to use the technical indicators, I think supply and demand is better. So the OBV is the on balance volume, and so we can build that in, and I think we can build that in with some moving averages in itself, and that might be a better way to look at this. Did I just miss it? So let me just look it up. On balance. There we go. Okay, so this one is supposed to be, well, the way this is calculated, we'll discuss that in a bit, but this one is supposed to be really good. So I think we can make a signal line off this, much like the MACD or others. In fact, we could build the OBV into the MACD and the RSI and number of these, and then create like a strategy. So let's first create the indicators. We'll put those back into SQL Server, then we'll move forward onto the rest of the project. So back to this. Now let's just start creating some of these, and I think we're already pretty long into this video, so I'm going to try to do some of these pretty quickly just to get these knocked out of the way, and then I'll just make a new video so we're not watching for like an hour straight. So the first one, let's start with just, I guess, the exponential moving average. So we're going to do the EMA 5. That one was pretty good. The other thing to know is you can use the packages. There's like TALib, Pandas TA. I elected not to use those because I had some issues with one of them before in the past, so I decided I would just make my own. It's a little bit easier for me to control it versus if the package is getting, something's deprecated and so on and so forth. So we'll do span equals, in this case, if we're going to do the 5, we're going to do 5. And let's do adjust equals false. And then we'll say we want the average. Okay, so I think let's just copy that across. Let's just change this to the 20. And we might play with these a bit. We might have to go with, I don't know, maybe 5 might be too much noise. And we might want to go with like a 1020 or 920 or something that's closer matched to the other technical indicators. Now the harder one, I would go look up the formula for this one, because the RSI it's more complicated as far as formula. It's not a whole lot, but you can make up whatever you want in this case for these. So let's do delta equals df, and we'll use close again. And on this one, I want to do the diff. And gain. So we'll do a gain and loss. And this one should be the delta. This should be greater than 0. 0. And we're going to have to put a rolling window in here. And the window, I'm just going to use 10. Okay, so let's copy this. It'll be easier to change it. And now we could just do subtract and swap this to less than. And that's fine. And now the next one, we're going to do the RS equals gain divided by the loss. And now let's bring it into the data frame by saying df RSI equals 100 minus 100 divided by 1 plus RS. Okay, so there's our RSI, there's our EMA. Okay, so I'm gonna pause this and just write the rest because this video is too long at this point. So, and then I'll just walk through them pretty quickly so we'll put them back into our SQL server, and then the next we'll be creating a strategy for it. So now we have all of our indicators brought in. Yeah, we'll see how these are going to work out. So we did do, let's kind of walk through the ones we did do. So we have the moving averages. I decided to bring in the death cross, and I am going to change these ones to the 9 and 21. So I took a moment to kind of like use the Yahoo Finance chart and see how much noise was brought in under 5 and 20. It looked like a little too much, so I decided to go with 9 and 21. That one, just arbitrarily looking, looked like gave me the best bang for my buck. I might go back and change that again back to the 5 and 20, or bring that one in too. And then the death cross, the 50 to 200, just because that's like all the talking heads on, the news channels, whatever. That's the one they talk about the most for recessions and stuff. So we'll bring that one in. And then this one is going to be for the RSI. And then after the RSI, I brought stochastic in. So we'll use an oscillator here, and it's same parameters on like the 14-day window. And then for the MACD runs kind of a 12-26-9 for the signal. And then the Bollinger Bands, and I read that these ones are pretty good. We'll find out soon enough. So Bollinger Bands, and then the ATR, so average true range for volatility. And then I said I was pretty interested in the OBV, which I have a feeling that I'm going to create quite a bit more for the OBV in the next video. So made the OBV and then did a signal, so a rolling window of 5. So we kind of have a moving average crossover to create like, in my head, I think of something like a bearish or bullish environment. And then just we exit out of the function, and now we'll bring the function back into our data frame, and then we'll put that back into the Microsoft SQL server, and we should be, well, at least good with this video at this point. So let me go ahead and just write these really quick, and I should just be able to grab that from the top. And let's bring this into data. And then let's do data.dropInA in place is true. And then I like my standard, let's just create a CSV file. And once again, we'll just call this trash again. It just gives us another look. And then let's go ahead and just put that into the SQL database. So data to SQL. And I don't really care what we call this. We could say this is the daily. This has our econ data. This has the S&P, and this has our technicals. It's probably the worst name under the sun, but whatever. That's what we're going to run with today. And then for connection, CON, we'll say our engine. And then we need to say if this exists, because we'll probably be updating this again. We'll do a replace. And then index of false. That should be good. And let's go ahead and run this. So we'll go back to here. So we have our 3. So when I run this, then we're just going to refresh everything and see if everything comes in. Looks like it's good. So let's go ahead. You'll see nothing's here right now. So you just keep refreshing until you see it. Sometimes it takes a minute. Let's just select top 1,000 rows. And let's look at our dates to see if that forward fill worked well. It looks like it's working here. So we were at 5.8 before. So this is definitely where the forward fill is coming in. As we can see, we have decimals running out to the moon. We probably could adjust those because they're the same for everything. where it was a 2 decimal placement. So I might rewrite that. But let's take a look at our technical indicators. Looks like we got the EMA 50, 200, 9, 21, our RSI. I wonder how that looks. We could actually pick a snapshot in time to see if that is calculating correctly. Let's just come down here. Oh, we're in the top 1,000, so yeah, I'm not going to look at it right now. No big deal. So we have the OBV, SMA. Great. So the next thing in the next video, what I want to do is create a strategy. So it's kind of what I was talking about, saying something like, if RSI hits this, then this, then this, then buy. And so that'll be the next part. And then we'll convert that to binary to be fed into a model, and we'll go from there.